seen the participants in front of me, then that's something nice after this well, continuing way of doing the meetings. Then, as Hen mentioned, with Professor Keeling, we are going to tell you about the exercise we did this year in April and May regarding the linkage between the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and animal welfare. Then we divided the presentation in two parts. I will talk to you about the context and why the OIE is decided to develop this work, and Linda will be more in the details and some preliminary results from the meeting. Then just to check, you can see the full presentation in the screen? Yes, perfect, thanks. Then, as I said, I will give you some context. Always it's good to know what we're talking about when we talk about the OIE. You know, the OIE is the Office International du Citoyen, created in 1924. Then in one more year, we are going to celebrate our 100th anniversary. That will be an important event, and with always with the idea to improve animal health, veterinary public health, and animal welfare worldwide. As you probably know, the OIE today have 182 members. The OIE divide the world geographically in 5 regions, and it's important to mention that the exercise we did, we tried to involve as much as possible all the regions, and because of that, it was also quite difficult to develop this exercise due to the time zone differences. In terms of welfare, probably also you know that it's rather new in the OIE environment. The OIE was founded in 1924, and only in 2002, the General Session passed a resolution where give the OIE the mandate to work on animal welfare. And another milestone in this work was the adoption of the OIE Global Animal Welfare Strategy in May 2017, after the last OIE Global Conference on Animal Welfare, which was in Mexico, in Guadalajara. Why I highlight the strategy? Because the forum where we discuss this exercise, it's part of one of the main activities of the OIE Global Animal Welfare Strategy. Just some information about the global strategy. The vision that it has is a world where the welfare of animals is respected, promoted, and advanced in ways that complement the pursuit of animal health, human well-being, socio-economic development, and environmental sustainability. Then it is quite in line with the work that we did in the forum, because they are trying to tackle the animal welfare issue in a more holistic way. The strategy, it's they have 4 main pillars, which are more or less the core activities that we do in the animal welfare area. Then, very quickly, these activities, the idea is to support the implementation of the strategy, these 4 pillars. The first one is what you probably know as the main work of the OIE, the development of standards, in this case, animal welfare standards that are in the terrestrial and the aquatic code. Capacity building activities that also probably some of you have participated, for example, the National Animal Welfare Focal Point Training, train the trainers activities. Probably some of you remember that the OIE some years ago developed an important program called Improve Animal Welfare Program on slaughter and transport. other workshops in terms of, for example, transport. And also we have a close collaboration with the OAI Collaborating Center and some other partners with which have cooperation agreements. And through them, we also develop some capacity building activities. In terms of the implementation, the third pillar of the animal welfare strategy, I'm going to just mention the regional animal welfare strategies and platform. Israel participates quite active in the European platform for animal welfare, the OAI one, because there is a European Union platform. And here the idea is to develop a program with the regional priorities to develop an action plan on animal welfare in relation with the main chapters of the terrestrial and aquatic code. And finally, we have an important pillar, which is the communication with the governments, organization, and the public. And in this pillar, we have the OAI Global Forum as one of the main activities to create a policy dialogue regarding animal welfare. Also, probably you know that we already conducted 3 forums. The first and the second were face-to-face meetings, and the first one was dedicated to a wider issue was the implementation on animal welfare standards. What could be done? What could be the best support for this implementation? And the second was on animal transport. And for example, from this meeting, one of the not to say conclusions, but advice or guidance from the discussion was the need to review the 3 animal welfare chapters regarding animal transport, which are now in the code. Oops. Sorry. Then, sorry, I'm in the presentation, no? Yes, okay. Then why is the OAI Global Animal Welfare Forum relevant for the discussion? Because they allows the OAI to discuss animal welfare policies, issues and activities with our members and with our partners and also experts that participate in some other process at the OAI. To identify the new source of expertise, educational programs, etc., and guide us as the OAI in terms of supporting communication and advocacy activities. Remember that in the past, the OAI had an animal welfare working group, a permanent animal welfare working group that advised the OAI in terms of policy also and in terms of future activities on welfare at the OAI. Then now we don't have that group, and in a way we try to capture all those information from the Animal Welfare Forum. For example, identify new areas of development for additional welfare standard, and the idea also to influence and support the implementation of animal welfare standard, trying to capture what are the difficulties and the challenges to implement. And why the OAI is considering the SDGs? Because, well, in the 7th OAI strategic plan, they are already included, because there are several aspects. For example, the world hunger, the importance of zoonosis, and the impact that has in the world population, the amount of population that relies on animal husbandry, and also the importance to support the veterinary service to also being capable to support also the national population. Then in the current 7 strategic plans, the OAI mention the importance to support the completion of some of the SDG. We're talking about the end of poverty, end of hunger, the ensure a healthy environment, the aspect on education, etc. We're going to see it more in detail later. And as I mentioned, this the relation between the SDGs and the OIE policies in general are embedded in the 7th strategic plan of the OIE. As I mentioned, then we have done 3 versions of the forum, and the third one was related to animal welfare and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. This was an activity with a close collaboration, and thanks again to our Swedish colleagues that support us in the methodological and also in the practical part of this forum. And it was done in April, May this year. Now I'm going to shift to Linda, and I'm going to give her the control of the presentation, and that's from my part. Thank you, and I will come back after Linda's presentation. Linda.
Thank you very much, Leopoldo, for that introduction to the exercise here, and thank you very much for the invitation to be here to talk about this exercise. It was, as Leopoldo said, a group work. There were different time zones and a lot of different working groups. So already we'd like to acknowledge all the helpers that we had facilitating the group work and helping with the planning here. You will recognize, I hope, these. This on the left, we have the OIE definition of animal welfare. Animal welfare means the physical and mental state of an animal in relation to the conditions in which it lives and dies. And you'll also recognize on the right-hand side, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And the question we asked at the OIE Animal Welfare Forum is, how are they linked? How can we study this? Now, as you know, animals are hardly mentioned in the Sustainable Development Goals, and their welfare is not mentioned at all. But animals are there implicitly. I'm not moving forward. No, wait, I'll try again. I worked earlier on. Wait, I still have to try. It was delayed before. Why doesn't it move forward now?
Maybe I can control it. You tell me later.
Yeah, but it's strange. We tried it before, and you managed to give me the, and I can see that the mouse moves.
Yep.
There.
Yep.
Well, delayed action here. So, as I said, animal welfare, animals are hardly mentioned in the Sustainable Development Goals, but they are implicitly there, especially the links to livestock. And this is a wheel or an illustration developed by the FAO. You may have seen it before. It's too small for you to read, but I'm going to highlight some points here. What they did was they went round, and for each of the 17 goals, they said, how is this linked? So taking the first one, no poverty, how is it linked? Number 2, zero hunger, how is it linked? So I'm just going to pick up some of the ones that you might not see the obvious link to livestock, to the Sustainable Development Goals. So for example, number 5, how does this link to gender equality? Well, the majority of poor livestock keepers are women. Take another example that you may not have thought about, but the moment you do start to think about these things, you can see how important the livestock is. Number 8, decent work and economic growth. 40% of the agricultural GDP is provided by livestock. Another example, number 9, industry, innovation and infrastructure. How is that linked to livestock? Well, small-scale livestock producers lack market access and inclusion, so they can't sell their products even if they're producing it. So they're excluded from the distribution. Peace, justice and strong institutions, SDG number 16. Conflicts and war create tensions between communities. This is problems for groups of people that are moving with their animals, pastoralists. And as part of this exercise, the FAO developed, probably because of their discussions about number 17, the stakeholders in the livestock section have come together, and there's the global agenda for sustainable livestock, GASL. And there is an animal welfare network as part of this global agenda for sustainable livestock. So when you look at this and systematically go through, the FAO was able to see the links for every single SDG to livestock. And the question that we asked is, well, can we do the same? Are there links there also to animal welfare? So the two main aims with the exercise at the Animal Welfare Forum were first to facilitate a general discussion on the links between animal welfare and the SDGs, to discuss these, exchange views, experiences, explore potential agreement on general issues around animal welfare and the SDGs. People have a lot of knowledge. As Leopoldo said, they're coming from different areas. I'll show you a graph of that. So there's a lot of knowledge out there, and we wanted to share those and discuss those. But I'm going to talk today mainly about the second exercise, which was to quantify the strengths of the associations between animal welfare and each SDG using an individual scoring methodology. And I'll present that to you. And the aim here is to explore the consistency across people. Are there general trends? But also we're now starting to look in a little bit more detail at the variation between people. So there were 144 participants who registered and attended at some point the forum on one of the 3 days. And this is the distribution, mainly Europe and the Americas, but you can see other countries as well represented. Not everybody took part in all the scoring, but still a very good and wide distribution. And what we did was we built on this existing methodology that I talked about. Leopoldo has already mentioned the workshop in Sweden in 2018, where we had discussions and the first testing of this sort of scoring methodology, where we tried it out for the first time and worked on it a little bit more. And then also a follow-up project where we had this discussion with a graduate school, that's PhD students in 2019. And here we were exploring different contexts and the development of views over time. So this was broadening students' perspectives, getting them to think about their research and their PhD projects and how they are contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals. So now to what we did in the forum here, and a bit more about the methodology. So I'm going to walk you through this. First of all, I want you to look at the table on the left-hand side. This scoring system from -3 to +3 was first proposed by Nielsen in 2016. And then it was used by Weiss. And in that study, they were comparing the links between different sub-goals or different targets under the SDGs and looking for the strength of the interaction. So -3, that's cancelling, makes it impossible to reach the other goal. So putting these two targets together, if they gave it a -3, it meant that you couldn't achieve both of these. And then going up the scale to 0, consistent, no significant positive or negative interactions, and up to +3, where there was an indivisible. If you achieve this target or this sub goal, then this one comes along as well. You can't see my hands. This one, and then this one comes along as well. Now, we know that animal welfare is not mentioned in the Sustainable Development Goals, so we couldn't do that type of exercise. So if you look at the right-hand side now, what we did was a much more general and holistic view. How achieving the SDG would impact on animal welfare. So we lifted it up to the level of the goals, the 17 goals, and asked that first question of how would you rate achieving that SDG on animal welfare? And then we did it the other way around. So point B, how would improving animal welfare, how would that impact achieving the SDG? So now I'm going to give you an example so you can try this out in your head as a little thought experiment. So the basic idea, and we start with number 1, the no poverty. So SDG 1 says end poverty in all its forms everywhere. So you have a think now, if like the people in the exercise at the forum, you got asked the question, how would you rate the impact of ending poverty on improving animal welfare? What score would you give it between -3 and +3? So have a think about this in your head. Do you think that if you end poverty, then it would be impossible to improve animal welfare? Then you would give it a -3, because ending poverty and improving animal welfare, they would cancel each other out in your head. So you give it a -3. Maybe you think they don't cancel each other out, but they clash, which makes it difficult. So you might give it a -2. You might think that they limit. If you end poverty, then, oh, it's difficult to achieve improving animal welfare, -1. You may think 0. Ending poverty doesn't have any effect at all on welfare. You may start to think of the positive effect of a synergy, that ending poverty would enable, it would create conditions that would further the improving animal welfare. You give it a +1. If you think it would reinforce it, that ending poverty would aid the achievement of improving animal welfare, give it a +2. And if you think that ending poverty is going to result in improved animal welfare, give it a +3. So think in your head how you would rate that question. Okay, and then do it the other way around. So how would you rate the question the other way around? What's the impact of improving animal welfare on ending poverty? Do you think it's -3, it cancels it, or 0 or +3? Notice they don't have to be the same score. It may be the same score, but it doesn't have to be. So think about what score you give for each of the two questions. And there are just some pictures down here to show you the different types of poverty, different species involved, different countries. We were thinking very holistically here, globally, all species, all context. So that's just a little reminder. So I hope you've had a chance to think about that, because now I'm going to show you what the other people, then we went on and we did that for each of the SDGs. So people had to work hard at this forum, at the OIE Animal Welfare Forum. So we went through doing this both ways for each of the 17 goals. And this is what we found. As you'll notice, the green dots up in the top right-hand circle are the 17 different goals. Each circle there has a number on it, which represents each SDG, and the size of the circle reflects the variation around it. But I'll come on and talk about that in a minute. What I first want you to notice is that the mean score was greater than 0 in both directions. So on average, all SDGs were thought to be positively related. So there were synergies achieving the SDG and achieving the animal welfare. And you can think, what did you score? Okay. And if we look a little bit more detail, we can see that along the x-axis, the rated impact of achieving animal welfare on the SDG, then the average score was 1.38. That's somewhere between enabling and reinforcing. And if you look on the y-axis, the mean score was 1.89. That's somewhere, again, between enabling and reinforcing. So generally positive scores. But that doesn't mean that everybody scored it positive. Though the range, this is the lowest score to the highest score. You can see that the minimum range, we have only 2 scores, actually going from +1 to +3. So for that SDG, everybody was very positive. But for other SDGs, we have the whole scale. Somebody scored -3 and somebody scored +3. So those ones, we have the variation going across the whole of the score. And we know from the study with the PhD students that how a person rates is very influenced by how they're thinking at that time, the context that they have in mind, the species, their own experiences. And this is interesting to go into and look at. But in our exercise, we were looking at it very generally. So these are the overall results there. If we focus in on the top right-hand corner, so you can see then on the top right-hand corner of this slide, you can see the previous slide with the circles up there. What I've done now is sort of enlarge that quadrant. So you can see that this scale goes from 0 to +3 on both sides, so that we can look in a little bit more detail about how the different SDGs distribute themselves within that positive score. And you can see that the top scoring ones there are number 14, life below water, number 3, good health and well-being, number 12, responsible consumption and production, and number 15, life on land. So those are the ones that have the strongest positive links. I mean, they're between 2 and 3, most of them. And then at the other end, we have those that are still positive, but they are the least positive links. And there we have number 5, gender equality, number 7, affordable and clean energy, and number 10, reduced inequalities. So that was how the people scored at the OIE Animal Welfare Forum. What I put on here is the same scoring there, but then I've put up on the left-hand side what we got from the other two scorings. And this is from the paper in 2021. And at the top there, when it says experts A, those are the results from the first workshop that Leopoldo attended. And then the B, the one underneath, is from the students on the summer school. And what I want you to notice is it's the same 4 that come up. So a lot of consistency here. The original workshop, when we have no idea, the students in their course who were informed and discussed it, but still came to that, and then the OIE forum. So a lot of consistency in where we think the strongest synergies are. And then we can look at the bottom ones. And again, a lot of consistency here. It's these more abstract ones. So it's not difficult to think that those up at the top are the ones that are related with anthropocentric, zoocentric. They have animals and living objects in them. Whereas the ones that are the least positive, although still positive, are more abstract, like the gender equality and energy and things like that. What I want to go on and talk to you now is that part that we asked you to do the question in both ways. So the impact of achieving the SDG on animal welfare, that's the light green line. And you can see actually that tends to be a little bit more on the outside. And animal welfare and the impact of animal welfare on the SDG, that's the dark green line, and on the inside. And I should just explain, this is the same scoring system, but now instead of being on axes this way, it's as a circle. So 0 score is in the middle, and then you have the first line, which is if you score +1, the second line +2, and then the outside +3. So the more outside or the wider the target is, the stronger the synergy. So you can see that on average, the impact of SDG on animal welfare was more generally viewed more positively than the other way around, because those lines tend to be on the outside. But what I want you to look at specifically is how these lines go together and move apart. So the difference in these two lines was particularly large for some SDGs. So that's to say that the light green line, the impact of achieving the SDG on improving animal welfare, was much further out on this target diagram than the dark green line, which was the question the other way around. So what does that mean? Well, if you take number 16 there, peace, justice, and strong institutions, it means if we manage to achieve that goal, if we manage to get world peace, then that would have a big impact on improving animal welfare, because the light green line is outside somewhere about 2 point something. But the dark green line on the inside, which is on 1, says that just because we improve animal welfare doesn't mean that we're going to get world peace. Okay, so that's the line. So you can look at the other ones there. Education comes out as important. General education. This is not about animal welfare education, but education generally is thought to have a big impact on pulling animal welfare along. And then we have industry and innovation and infrastructure and reduced inequalities. I'll come back to these a little bit, but these are ones where the SDG, achieving the SDG, is going to pull animal welfare along as well. Then we have those that for some SDGs, the impacts were equal in both directions. So the green, light green, and the dark green lines pretty much overlap. And here we can see that's the case for 0 hunger, number 2. Number 3, good health and well-being. Number 8, decent work and economic growth. And number 13, climate change. And if we take, for example, SDG 3 with a good health and well-being, it's saying that this goes both ways. And I mean, this is classic One Health, the discussion, the One Health concept. We know about the zoonoses, we know about the impacts, we know about impacts of animals affecting the health of people and people's health affecting animals, use of antibiotics. I mean, you're in this area. So here is an example where it's coming out that the effect is going in both ways. The FAO has been working a lot on capacity building to reduce poverty and hunger as well. So that's taking example 2. We know about working environment and people feel good working around animals. Climate change, we discuss a lot about agriculture as well. So here, interesting on whether these lines are similar or apart. And again, to compare, these are the equivalent graphs for the other 2 times. So the black line is the workshop, the first one. That's the paper 2019. And that you can see in both cases is a little bit more on the inside. For workshop 2, that's the gray one. And then the green one was the OIE workshop. So if you look at the left graph, that's the animal welfare and SDGs, is how remarkably similar they are. So it's not only which ones people rank highest and lowest on that graph that I showed you with the dots on it, but also on how they rate the relative impacts towards each other. I mean, remarkably similar on the left line of the left one. On the right-hand one, it's similar, but you can see that over the 1, 2, 3 workshops, this tending to go out. So the people at the OIE forum were the most positive to having the SDG having the impact on animal welfare. And on the first workshop, where we talked about, we were a little bit more saw the positives, but maybe didn't dare put in quite as much. So I think it's interesting, the consistency of the results here. So time's going on. So that was a lot of information, and it's not all the information that we have got. We're still working on this and we're analyzing it, but these are the main points. And so what I want to do is just summarize these for you. So if you look up in the top right-hand corner, that was the question. How are these linked? How is animal welfare linked to the SDGs? And the first one to ping out is, well, there seems to be consistency in which SDGs are considered most strongly associated with animal welfare and those least strongly. So that we have 3, 12, 14, and 15. These ones dealing with living beings, we tend to, and consistently across different people globally, across all different species, we tend to think that those have a stronger synergy than the other ones, like gender equality and whatever. So that's a generally robust result. But that doesn't mean to say that we should only focus on those ones, whether the strongest synergies, the 3, 12, 14, and 15. It depends on what you want to achieve. So if we take the second line, for some SDGs, improving animal welfare helps to achieve the SDG. So here we have 0 hunger, number 3, good health and well-being, decent work and economic growth, and climate change. So this is saying that if we improve animal welfare, then we are contributing to achieving that goal. And so we can work as organizations, as veterinarians, as the OIE and others, towards reducing world hunger, to having good health, to a decent working environment by our and climate action, by our work on animal welfare. We are helping within our own areas of competence and experience, helping achieve these bigger Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. And then we can look at the last line down here, that achieving some SDGs help improve animal welfare. So that's number 4, quality education, number 9, industry and innovation, 10, reduced inequalities, 16, peace and justice, and 17, partnerships. And here it's saying that if we want to improve animal welfare, it may actually be better for us to help those organizations that are specializing in education, that are specializing in infrastructure, that are working on reducing inequalities and strong institutions and partnerships. Because if we help those organizations or help those SDGs, then animal welfare comes along anyway when we achieve those. So there's many different ways to be improving animal welfare, and there's different ways of helping achieve the SDGs. And this will be my last slide here before I pass the word back to Leopoldo. So just some final comments and next steps. So we feel even more confident now that there's mainly synergies between improving animal welfare and achieving the SDGs. The OIE forum really allowed us to have confidence in that, the global aspect, the large number of people, and the fact that it was consistent with what we were finding in our smaller groups in Sweden. So much more confidence now on these synergies. And also it seems to be that this is enabling and reinforcing the achievements of the other. It's not just, oh, a little bit of a positive. This is people really thinking that these have co-benefits. Robust results that I said are consistent across different studies. And then I think I know we're going on to explore this further by a closer examination of the text and the themes identified in the small and the working groups at the forum. So we have lots of information that we're looking at this now and analyzing it in more detail. And then the idea is that we can use this knowledge to make informed policy decisions. So the scoring, but also what were people thinking and what was their reasoning around the scores. And then, whoops, one more slide, Leopoldo. If you just click once more, there we are. This one, the methodology, and this is a little bit of what you're doing today, a methodology to use in future work. It's a systematic process, one SDG at a time, that results in this holistic view. So piecemeal, very systematic scoring allows us to get this overview. And we can identify from this where there's broad agreement, the ones where there was that small range in the different scores, to where there's different views when it ranged from -3 to +3. Is it that there's difference on the same thing, or is it just that one person's thinking of an example where there are conflicts and somebody else is thinking of an example where there are synergies? So once you start to focus in on specific examples or a specific country or a specific species, maybe the agreement is stronger, or maybe it does depend on, there's a lot of variation on the best ways to go forward. And then again here, helping to make strategic decisions on specific issues and context. This exercise helps clarify why we're thinking these things. Instead of just sort of vague words, we're identifying, we're quantifying this and then backing it up with text and thinking about this. So I hope that as we go on and we move and use this methodology, that we can be more specific and target in on specific questions of how to proceed. And with that, I pass the word back to Leopoldo.
Thanks very much, Linda. And as it was in the forum, I think you did an extremely nice job with the other colleagues from Sweden to support the OIE. Just to finish with as Linda mentioned, how these results could be used in terms of the OIE policies on animal welfare. Here, I'm not going to go through all of these squares here, but we identified some of the OIE tools that could be instrumental to achieve the SDGs. Linda mentioned education. The OIE have an important work on how include animal welfare in the curriculum and in undergraduates and studies. And for example, the partnership the OIE released recently an important work on how to reinforce the public and private partnership that could also support the implementation on animal welfare. I'm not going to go through the other ways to improve, but you know that the OIE have also the performance and veterinary tool, PVS tool, that also could be used as a tool to monitoring and evaluate the improvement on animal welfare, as it's included as a critical competency of the veterinary services. The same way, in terms of supporting the development of regulation, the PVS tools also have a specific legislation mission to support member countries to improve their regulatory framework. As I said, there is a lot of tools that the OIE have and already put in place that could support the implementation of animal welfare strategy, and also to in achieving the SDGs as the exercise shows. Then I leave you with this slide, and I would like to finalize here. Thank you very much for the invitation again. Thank you very much for your attention. Over to you, Liram or Hen.
Thank you very much for a lovely presentation. Let me see how lively, yeah. So everyone can see you, everyone. And now it's at the floor for questions. Can open the floor for questions. There's any questions? Yeah. We have a microphone or something. No, it's not here. Gabi, you have to ask loud. Leopoldo, do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes, because I
okay.
didn't hear nothing
his
at
question.
all.
So next time he will come here to the stage. But the question was, there's the education that you created. Did you refer to the farmers, to the student, to the people who was guiding? Which were the aim, the stakeholders for those kind of education that you are planning on having from those SDGs program?
I was referring, there's some documents that are under the framework of the PVS tool, which are related to education, and there is specific documents on how animal welfare could be, not specifically, but how develop the core curriculum for undergraduate students, and there also it's included the importance and the place of animal welfare teaching in those curricula. I am referring to that tool, which started several years ago with the first conference on veterinary education, and also now there is some documents related to the education in terms of the veterinary paraprofessional. Thens are covered both the veterinary education itself and also the paraprofessionals on veterinary. Over.
Yeah.
Those documents are available in the OIL website. I can send you the link.
Yeah, thank you. It will be good. There's any more questions? Then, yeah, but Sagib, come here. It'll be easier for us because all the microphone is already on the tables. Come quickly. He doesn't hear you. Come here.
Okay, sorry. First of all, thank you for being here. And there's so many things that I heard from you that are new to me, and I really appreciate it. I want to know if you believe that humanity can reach those goals, especially in a very capitalistic world. That's my question, because I see all these goals and I say, yeah, can we do it? I don't think so.
Till 2030, yeah.
Yeah, till 2030. And the second thing is, we're talking about welfare. What about liberation? What about veganism instead of welfare? That's two questions for you. Thank you.
Want to start, Leopoldo, or should I?
Ladies first. It's quite a coward from my side.
They are very big questions. Thank you very much. And of course, I don't have the answer. I don't think Leopoldo has the answer. I'm not sure anybody has the answer. The first one you said was, can we achieve the goals? Probably not, but I think the other option is not even trying. And it's the journey. It's the moving forward towards them that I think is the important point. And it may be that the goals change, they evolve. We have targets to monitor the progress towards them. So I think they are incredibly ambitious, and I share your concerns that we are not going to achieve them by 20 and 30. I think some of them are already not going to happen. But that doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't stop trying. So I think it is important to have methods and approaches and to be working together to try to achieve them. So that's the first one. And then the second one, what about veganism and welfare? Well, veganism is just choosing not to eat products that come from animals. And there are many different reasons for being a vegan, and animal welfare is one of them. Whereas animal welfare, if you take the definition of the OIE, is about an experience of the animal itself. So that you're talking a little bit on different levels there. And even a person who doesn't eat any product from animals can still have views on how animals should be kept, because do they have a pet? Do they go and observe animals in zoos? How do they think about the environment and the ecosystem of animals in the wild, fish in the sea? So veganism is, maybe they're not a consumer for agricultural products, but they can still have views on all the other species of animals as well. So I think it's important when we're moving forward to the SDGs that we get in as many different views as possible. Thanks. So that's my comment on those two questions. Leopoldo, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I fully agree more or less with both answers that you gave. For the first one, I'm going to use the phrase that probably my mentor at the animal welfare policy maker area, David Babel, who was the former president of the Animal Welfare Working Group, used to mention that animal welfare it's not a destination, it's a journey. And that means that we have been traveling. I mentioned that the OIE is quite rather new in the development of animal welfare policies. 2002, it's just in the corner, but we have been done a lot of progress. It's incredible. I see the regulatory development of countries where I hardly thought in the past that they're going to have something in a 20-year lab, but it's something that it's a continue movement, moving in the positive way and always forward. And to the other question, also I agree with Linda. It's completely different things, and also you have to, from the OI point of view and also from my point of view, it's at the OI we're working at global level. We have to take into account different contexts, different beliefs, different religions, different economic and social contexts that we need to take into account to improve in this way that we can continue moving, but always forward. Over.
Thank you, Leopoldo. Last question, Ayelet.
Hi, my name is Ayelet. I'm working with Chen, and I wanted to ask if you also, while you were examining the direction between the SDGs, how it influenced animal welfare and vice versa, have you recognized also if there is also a kind of direction that an SDG is influencing positively on animal welfare, and then you get another SDGs, for instance, like if you are educating, if you are influencing on education, and because of that, the animal welfare will increase, and then you can also achieve maybe gender equality, something like that. Because I was examining and I saw that it sometimes it has a lot more directions, like it's like a link more than just one direction between the SDGs and the animal welfare.
I can start to answer that. You've done something that you've asked a question that I would really love to do. There are so many ideas of how to take this on further. I think we've achieved our goal of looking broad. I would really like now to go into details. And you're not the first one to see that these, all the different goals are linked. They're like this, and it would be very interesting to see how you can set on with these chain reactions, because that's what you're referring to. You help one thing happen, and then that helps the other one, as well as there may be a direct effect. So I think this would be super exciting to start to look at the reality of the situation, that it's not just a single line going this way and then another one this way. There are many networks going on. So I think this would be super exciting. And I think your example was a very good one of the link to education and gender equality, but there are many other links as well. It would be super exciting to start to explore this, but my brain goes, that's incredibly complicated. But that doesn't mean to say we shouldn't try.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Leopoldo. Yeah, Leopoldo, your floor.
No. Just to mention that we are in the process to also to analyze some more qualitative data, and on there also was some indication of this kind of relation trade-off, because not necessarily could be positive, sometimes it could be negative, and there was a lot of discussion in the also the breakup groups regarding this links and synergies all between the SDGs, also when you are going to achieve also animal welfare aspects. Then that's from my side. Over.
Yeah, so there was one last question. Somebody, from the Safari, come here. We are having a really mixed crowd, which is people, civilian, veterinarian, safari people, zoo animal. It's like veterinary hospital. So it's a real mixed crowd. Go for it.
Hi, good morning. My name is Gilad. I'm the curator of the safari. My question is a bit of a diplomacy question concerning one of the last slide of you, Linda. There were three different arms of strategies that you suggested to work on. And with our limited resources, which one from animal welfare sick people should we put our efforts to work on to achieve a more influence on the others?
Just a question, are you referring to the side where I tried to give the overview of and the 3 points of how the links were? One, there was an overall, which ones were the highest synergies and which ones were the less strong, less positives, and then the middle one of which ones? You're referring to that slide?
Yeah, I think this one.
This one, yes. I can't answer your question. I think I would start with things that are easiest for you to do. So it may be depending on the situation and your job, the animals, the context where you live, it may be more obvious to work in one area than another. So I'm sorry, this is going to be a not very good answer at all, but I think you have to go from your situation and look at this and say, okay, well, I'm working in this area with this species. This is the area where I'm most knowledgeable, and this is where I can have most impact. And then also to collaborate with other people in other areas. So I don't think there's one obvious place to start. The starting point is going to be different for different people in different contexts in different countries. And that's why I think it's interesting to move now from this global view to the specific ones, to specific countries, specific species, specific problem areas, and then look in that context, what's the best approach? And that what comes out from that may be different from another country or another context or another species. So I think some sort of next step analysis where you're focusing in would help on this one. I don't think from these general results we can say which is the best way forward for everybody. Is that enough of an answer for you? Does that help?
It helps, yes. It helps to begin with. Thank you.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much for your lectures. Thank you for lovely and good information. And we're going to keep on from this point and moving to the Israeli national level. And we'll report back to you into OIE and to you, Linda. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And looking forward for your results. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.